In the Tekken series of fighting video games, there is a particular attack that is known as the Magic Four. On the surface, it appears as a plain, unremarkable high kick, but when used at the precisely perfect moment, when countering an enemy's attack, it reveals an awesome potential. I think that in our weird music theory harmony world of pitches, intervals, keys, and progressions, we have our own Magic Four. The fancy term for it would be the subdominant chord, but I like just calling it the four chord. I want to talk to you about how special and curious the four is, and how musicians have used it effectively, all so that you may take advantage of its impressive capability. All right, a quick primer on why chords have numbers in the first place. A major scale has 7 notes, but it also has 7 chords, the chords that you build up from those original scale tones. Starting from the root of the scale, that's the 1, we count all the way up to 7. These are also the numbers that you can see as Roman numerals. That's another way to label chords. In C major, C is our root, our 1, D is 2, E is 3, and so on and so on. The subject of our fascination today is chord number 4. Now, I'm only going to be talking about major keys and major scales. Whenever we discuss harmony like this, the default pattern is always major. The myriad other options, the minor scales, church modes, synthetic modes, weird jazz stuff, whatever funky scale you invented with psychedelic encouragement, is all viewed in variation to major. How are they different from a major scale? Like, for example, a natural minor is a major, but with a lowered 3, 6, and 7. Major is the base model. If chaos is a ladder, then perhaps order is a circle. And we have our own goofy circle. Maybe you've heard of it, perhaps you're terrified of it. It's the circle of fifths. The circle gives us a good representation of how harmony functions and chords relate to each other in a way that is more useful than the linear chromatic piano keyboard. Along this circle, we have all 12 chromatic pitches, spaced perfect fifths apart and going up in the clockwise direction. We're playing around in C major, so these are the pitches that constitute the C major scale. With those 7 notes out of the way, that leaves 5 left in the cold and uninvited to the party. And since I'm not messing around with chromatic stuff today, I will be disregarding them for this video. But don't worry, fellas, you'll have your time. You will notice that all 7 pitches of the major scale appear in a solid line, no gaps in between them. The basic way to view harmonic function on the circle is that you build tension when going in the clockwise direction, and you relieve tension when going anti-clockwise. The function of the 5 chord is to resolve to the 1 chord. The function of the 2 chord is to go to the 5, which then goes to the 1, and that is the 2-5-1 figure you'll know about if you study jazz music. I'll play a small example right now, and the chords will be displayed here on the circle. Pay attention to the direction in which the chords are progressed. In all of this, the tonic has been treated as the final resting place, the ultimate harmonic DMZ toward which all tension is released, like a spiral spring being wound up and then releasing all of its progressive energy. Indeed, most of the scale tones are to the right of the 1. 7 goes to 3, goes to 6, to 2, to 5, to 1, but here we are. There is a chord that has not yet been addressed. A chord that is, in fact, to the left of the 1 itself. That's the 4. That's the subdominant, and it occupies the most interesting position. So, given everything that I've said so far, you might come to the conclusion that the function of the 1 chord is to resolve to the 4 chord because it's going anti-clockwise. And that happens sometimes, but it's not really how it works. As you would learn in a theory class, the textbook function of the 4 chord is as a predominant, which means that, like the 2, it's supposed to lead into the dominant, which is the 5 chord. But the way I see it is that the 4 exists as a kind of mirror universe counterpart to the 1. Because the 4 sits alone in this regressive space to the left of the tonic, it can be used to disrupt the normal harmonic structure. Let's try a small example here. I'll play a little tune from Super Mario 64. The same riff in the right hand, but the left hand alternates chords between 1 and 4. Now let me play it again, but I'll switch up some of those chords and you can hear the difference. The 2 and 6 triads are only 1 note off from the 4 chord. On paper, they should sound pretty similar, and yet I don't think they do. There's something recessed in the character of the subdominant that separates it from the other chords. It's a common trope in pop music to begin new sections of the form on the 4 chord. Now, this is not to be confused with a modulation. Those are not very common. But songwriters will use the 4 as a kind of marker to indicate that we're moving on to a new part of the song. Now, please forgive me for singing, but here are some examples of that. Love is now the stardust of yesterday, the music of the years gone by. Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely night dreaming of a... I know this superhighway, this bright familiar sun. I guess that I'm the lucky one. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in this world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Maybe you'll sit inside, wishing that I were near. Then maybe you'll ask me to come back again, and maybe ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead. There's something wrong. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear fly floating round my tin can, far above the moon. Interesting things happen when you invoke the 4. Use it to your advantage. Time it right for maximum effect, and it can give you tremendous emotional returns.